Hello and welcome back to the Here to Their Wellness podcast, our weekly episode. We're back and we're better with videos. I bet you've been wondering all these weeks what we look like. Here
Here
we
we
are.
are. Mhm.
I'm Izzy, and of course, I'm here with Megan Gallagher, the owner of Here to Their Wellness. Um,
So
and we have a pretty interesting topic to go over right now that it feels like there's so much going on all the time, right? It feels very overwhelming, and it probably feels like there's a lot of things that are out of your control. So, what we want to talk about is personal control. So, the idea that how what we do in our personal lives, it again goes back to self-talk, goes back to how we treat ourselves, but how what we do can improve our lives so much and also improve how you're taking in so many times, like the news of what's going on around you or how other people are impacting you. So there's so much within it, but I think personal control is so important.
we have lots of it.
Yeah.
People don't think about how much control we have, but once the organic thought and or emotion comes forward, we have as much power and control as we ever possibly could. And
Mm.
we get to decide what we do. People say, "Oh, I can't help it. I just snapped." That's bullshit. You didn't just snap. There's an element of control. Um, and in order to be able to feel like you can exert power and control over how you behave, you have to slow things down so that you're aware of what's going on. I always tell my kids all the time, you can do whatever you want. Tell my clients this, you can do whatever you want, but that doesn't mean you're going to necessarily like the consequences.
Hmm.
But we have the power to choose every second of every day, everything that we do, outside of certain things such as breathing, blood flow, things like that. But I mean, even
Bare
then,
necessities.
we could say that there's some power and control there because we can do things to stop that from happening if we so choose.
Mhm. And I think
So
that it's a great segue. It's like you know what I'm going to talk about or something. But it's a great
here,
segue into what I want to start out with is really like that initial reflection and how important that reflection is of knowing what your triggers are, right? Whether it's something that's going to trigger anger in you or trigger stress or trigger anxiety. I think it's important to be able to identify what those things are and like when you're able to say, okay, I'm feeling these things. So for our listeners and our viewers right now, because of the video, Megan, in terms of like being able to pick triggers, what do you think is the best way to start?
it's really all about slowing things down and paying attention to what's going on. I like it when people are able to use body sensations. So
Mm,
years ago, I had a client. I've probably told everyone the story. I had a client who I never really identified as terribly insightful until one day he said to me, "So when I get mad, before I get mad, my ears get hot." I thought, "Oh my God, that's amazing." And I said, "That's fantastic because you have a clue into how you're about to feel because your body is telling you something." I believe that our bodies know what's happening much more quickly than our brains do because everything is just chemical reactions. There's no,
mm,
the body knows what the hormone that's being released is. Whereas our brains have to process it and figure it out and then attach it to previous experience and hopes and dreams and all that kind of stuff. So it's fast, don't get me wrong, but it's not as fast as the body. So when we start practicing doing body scans regularly, the idea is that, oh, I have this feeling in my belly. What could that mean? And then you slow everything down and you think about what's going on. Oh, I just had this weird interaction with a coworker. I think I feel anxious, but it's your body that's telling you that you're anxious. So you can blow that out a little bit bigger into, well, is it our body that's making us feel anxious or is it our anxiety that's making our body feel this way? And I'm a believer that our emotional health and wellness actually begins in the gut.
mm,
And that's where if our GI health is not up to par, our mental health and wellness will not be up to par either. That I think they're related like this, and I think it really does begin in the belly and with what we put into our mouths and on our skin. And
mm,
then what we think and how we talk to ourselves and all of that, more of the energetic stuff. But I do think there's a very earthly physical component to all of this stuff. Um, and the thing with triggers, I think that's really important to remember is no matter how much work we do on triggers, there's going to be triggers we don't know about. And they may not even make any sense. So somebody will come to me and say, I've just been in a really shitty mood all week. And my first thought is, okay, so are we looking at any anniversaries coming up? An anniversary of a death of a loved one, a
Mhm.
breakup, something like that. Somebody's anxious about something coming up, a wedding and an anniversary, something like that. But sometimes there isn't anything. Sometimes it's just nothing, and somebody's just in this weird place. So I think it's important to remember that no matter how good we get at understanding our own triggers, we also need to leave room and be flexible for other triggers, which we talked about last time about that importance of flexibility. We can develop all the plans we want, but if we're rigid with our thinking with that, we're fucked because we never know what's really going to happen. We can game plan all we want, but at
Absolutely.
the end of the day, it's a fucking crapshoot. We have no idea.
Yeah.
So,
Every day is different. It reminds me of like when you have a car with like those sensors on the side when you're getting too close to something and it's like beep beep beep
mhm,
beep beep. It's kind of like that. Like your body's like,
yes,
okay, it's coming. Beep 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 beep. Those personal sensors. Um,
yes,
I think that's I mean that those kind of like physical body checks are underrated. I mean, you're always thinking about, okay,
yeah.
like when you contribute yourself and saying like I'm having anxiety, it's like so often a physical tell, like even like the breathing exercises you can do. Like there's so much you can do to just like start with the heart rate, start with the gut, like what you're talking about. Um, so for like beyond the body scans, in terms of like coping skills, like say you identify, okay, this is something that is triggering me. Is it something like you should avoid? Like let's stick with like the coworker, for example. You should
Yes.
avoid that person entirely. Like you have to see them in terms of like how to cope with certain situations that like trigger you like that. Different
So
for everyone, right?
different for every circumstance. I think
Hmm.
that I have a client who's going through something with coworkers right now. It's what made me think of him. So sometimes I think when we're dealing with other people, it's killing them with kindness. I think sometimes it's um, deciding if it's worth the fight. I think sometimes it's a matter of recognizing if it's just going to end up being like a pissing contest.
Mm,
Because if you are having a dialogue with somebody or fighting with somebody and they absolutely are unwilling to see anything but how they view the world, if they're not willing to take anything else into account, you are absolutely wasting your breath. And then you have to decide, what am I fighting about? Why am I even arguing with this person? What is my end game? Because if your end game is to be heard, they're not going to hear you. If your end game is to sway their opinion, they're not moving, they're not deviating from what they think. So what is the end game, and is it worth your time and energy? And most of the time it probably isn't. But because we're doing things so quickly and we're not paying attention to the body cues and we're not evaluating triggers and we're not slowing things down, we miss those opportunities to kind of save our energy for something that's more positive and constructive, because we get into fights like that with coworkers, friends, family, all the time. That's just kind of how we operate.
mhm,
But the problem is that when you start to walk away from things like that, people get mad and they'll start to chase you like, hey, wait a minute. Oh, they don't like it when you just back away, because people are always, we are a train wreck society. We love the train wreck, and people
mhm.
like to be involved in the train wreck a lot of times. That it's validating for some weird. It's validating, and people like to be validated.
Yeah. And that's their thing too. Like it's not your thing to take on yourself, if they're saying that and projecting it. I saw this thing today, and it was like responses for somebody who's treating you in a toxic way, and it was like to respond like if they're being accusatory towards you or like putting things on you, to respond with, well, that may be true. And then leave it at that and have them be like, I wanted you to argue with me. I wanted you to fight with me, like I wanted you to feel the fire. Well, that may be true. Someone said like, doing the name calling or anything like that. Um,
Another thing you can do is what else? What else?
mhm,
What else? And when you use those tactics, you watch them just de-escalate like this until they get as much venom out as they can, and they realize they're not gonna. This sounds shitty. They're not gonna win.
mhm,
They don't have. This is how we do the opposite. This is how we stop gaslighting. When people gaslight, it's because they know they're getting a rise, they're getting the reaction they're looking for, and when we start changing the game on that, they don't know what to do, and so it stops being fun for them because they don't win anymore, and so they'll try and try and try, but it gets to a point where the victim just is like, "Psh, done, like this isn't a fun game for me anymore," and then the gaslighter, this word, wants to just kind of go find somebody else to pick on. It's
Yeah.
a bully. That's all gaslighting is. It's being a bully.
Being a bully. And I think that's also to say, like, I mean, this person probably goes home at some point and thinks about what they said, you know? It's like if you're not giving them fuel in some
I don't
situations, do you think some people are going home and also considering like, okay, at a certain point, if you're doing that enough, then maybe they'll actually look in the mirror and be like, what's happening?
um I wish I
You're
could
like, no
say that
shot.
I I don't maybe.
hmm
I think that
Sometimes I'm too Pollyanna. I got the rose-colored glasses. I'm like, we can change everybody.
oh, so I think it's possible. But I don't think it's likely. I think that we need to remember that empaths and highly sensitives make up such a small portion of the population. And so if you're in a room of 100 people and we were to identify you as an empath highly sensitive, you might find 12 other people that think like you, that see the world like you. So that's a lot of people that don't. And I think a lot of the times the people that don't are the ones who are more of the narcissistic, gaslighting kinds of people because they need to feel heard and validated, and that's what's worked for them historically.
hmm
Um, and empaths are so good at tolerating it because that's what we do. Just how we absorb it all. We'll take, wait, give it to me. I got it. I'll take it all just to keep you calm and happy and make you feel right and heard. I got you. That's what we do. We're great at it. That's why people like us.
hmm
Very accommodating. That's to our own detriment.
hmm
Um, so with triggers, go back to triggers, it's about slowing things down. That's which is about mindfulness and meditation. So when I do my meditative practice in the mornings, if I don't really lock into it, I can feel it. And as soon as I do lock into it, I can feel, I don't know how else to explain it other than I can almost feel the breath that sits in my chest sort of like drop into my belly. And I feel
Mm,
everything in my head just slow down. And then it's just this place of it's just so much more calm and peaceful in every part of my body. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention about body scans is body scans are really key when we do a treatment that I do called accelerated resolution therapy. And without body scans, it's really not that effective. And that's how powerful our body sensations are because they give us so much information. Um, and the treatment that I do, that's like a topic for another time because that's like multiple podcasts. We could talk about that for
mm,
years, literally. But body scans are essential, and when we're doing any kind of work, um, it's learning to identify triggers or how to manage emotions or anything, which is all sort of similar. Body sensations are key because they do
yeah.
provide so much information. You
Yeah.
don't get those unless you slow down. Have to work at it, just like everything
It's
else. It's
you
hard.
have to work at it. It's easier said than done to slow down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
Oh,
easy
way
to go
easier
fast and
said than
ignore everything and keep your brain constantly stimulated and constantly scrolling or texting or calling or whatever.
done.
Um,
If you
we're
can't
gonna
sit quietly with yourself, that indicates that there is something that needs to be worked on.
mm, and you, our listener, can sit quietly while we go to a commercial break real quick. We'll be right back after this note from our sponsor. All right, we are back. Thanks for staying tuned after that commercial. So we're talking about body scans. It actually goes into my next thing I wanted to bring up, which is I think a little bit underrated, and it's talking about personal hygiene. Because I think personal hygiene and just personal upkeep can just be like people think, oh yeah, I shower. Like, yeah, I brush my teeth. Like, what do you mean? Like I have personal hygiene. But it's like I almost think of it as like your physical and then just like your like soul hygiene, you know, like those body scans, that meditation, getting sleep, eating right, like all those pieces are such big contributors to that like stress and anxiety that you could feel.
Mhm. So there are ways to move about life in a near constant state of prayer and gratitude. And it's really, I mean, again, easier said than done, but it's really, if I explain it, it makes sense. So if you take a shower, thank the water for cleaning off all of the dirt and muck, but physically and energetically. As you drink, if you have that a practice of drinking, lemon water in the morning or a cup of green tea or whatever, f- give gratitude to it, give thanks to it. Thank you for cleansing me. So I have a couple of things so I always drink warm lemon water in the morning, and when I do that, I think I thank Mother Earth for sending love and light to fill my body to every crevice. Love and light, love and light, love and light. That's probably a surprise. And then I drink cranberry juice with fiber in it just because of all of my personal things. And I say thank you, and I release every that which no longer serves me. When I first started doing it, what I read said, say, I forgive and release. And I thought that's stupid because why do I need to forgive? If I'm getting lessons from whatever I'm releasing, why do I need to forgive it? Like I'm
Hmm.
grateful for all the lessons. So I'm grateful and release that which no longer serves me
Yeah.
every day. Same thing.
Uh, that
And
reminds
then,
me
gr-
of
and then,
go ahead.
and then I drink like green tea or coffee, and then it's please give me energy and creativity to make it through the day.
Mm. That must be
But there's
such
ways
like
to do it.
a enlightening way to open the day, to just be like I'm just open to what's coming and I'm grateful for what's coming.
But I don't know if it's like this for everybody, but for me, if I don't do there's a few morning rituals that if I don't do, I feel off. Um, especially for the first half of the day. And then I tend to not sleep well at night if I don't do the nighttime ones. Like I'll sleep
Mhm.
better if I do the nighttime ones. And some of that is just because it's habits, it's because it's routine, it's because it's ritual, it's prayer. But these are just things that I've learned that my body, my mind, and my spirit respond well to, and then are able to, this sounds maybe silly, but are able to perform at the highest level that I can get them to in the moment. If I deviate from those things, it's like a good stretch before you work out or a good warm up before you work out.
Right.
You're not going to work out as well. So these things are like that for me. And I don't know if everybody else feels that way. That's how I describe it. And I haven't always done it.
Hmm.
But I find that the more consistent I am with it, the better I feel. So,
That reminds me of this is a funny story. When I was growing up, we used to say grace before dinner. And
mm,
my mom, when she used to say grace, she would go so in depth of like say we're eating like rice or something. Thank you for the farmers who on the farm gathered this rice and grew this rice. And we'd be like kids and you're starving and you're like, oh, like, can dad say grace tonight? Like, cause he'd be like, bless us, O Lord, please, I guess. Like the short version, my mom would be like, and thank you for the son that grew this right, like, and
oh
now,
my God.
as a kid, I was like, I'm gonna lose my mind. But, as most things
Love
looking
that.
back, mom's wiser than you thought in the moment.
Yeah, I could
So
see me doing that with my kids and then being like, "Can we just eat these burgers, please?"
eh,
Because
at a certain point, I think she was doing it on purpose because she'd start doing it for dessert. She'd be like, and this delicious ice cream, and I'm like, Mom, it's gonna be melted.
so
Um,
that's so there that so as a mother, I will say that sometimes it's fun to torture my children a little bit
yeah,
with things like the good for you. What are you grateful for today? What was your favorite part of the day? Stuff like that.
yeah,
Oh, but
I
I also
love
think
that.
that teaching kids young, it's just I don't expect anybody that I work with, be it my children or anybody else, to able to do all of these things all the time. I mean, that's just not realistic of anybody, but
Mm,
whoever I work with in whatever capacity it is, personal, professional, my goal is to plant seeds so that way maybe I'm the one to help cultivate it, but maybe I'm not. I don't I mean, I'd like to be the one to help cultivate, but I don't care. Like if somebody else can do it better than me for somebody, that's awesome. Let's just get this shit cultivated and going so that people can spread love and light and really understand and believe that we are so much more than just these earthly vessels that we're inhabiting, and that we really are all beings of light. I don't know if everybody can see that. I don't think that that's part of everybody's journey here in this time and place, but for those of us that do get it, we need it now more than ever,
yeah.
in a big
And
way, in
it's
a really big way.
and it's to say too, it's the same as what we're talking about with goal setting. Like these things we're talking about of like identifying your triggers, thinking of ways to get over it, even again, your personal health, like it starts with little changes, like
Yeah.
what you set for yourself is going to look totally different than what somebody sets for themselves. If your way to take care of yourself is making your bed in the morning, like, same thing we talked about last time. Or maybe like you identify the coworker that triggers you and you decide, I'm going to say good morning to them today. Like just whatever it is, like I think it's so hard when you look at yourself comparatively to other people, like anything that like we light up or anything that we highlight on our side is just like examples, but it's also so personal. Everyone takes away different things from these, hopefully takes away different things from these podcasts.
And so the other thing I think to remember is that we have to pay attention to, we talked about a few minutes ago about the motive. So if you have an issue with a coworker and you're looking to get that coworker to treat you differently, you're not going to win that one. You're just not. So you have because the only place we have power and control is with ourselves. So we do kind things or we change our attitude or our behavior, it really has to be because that's what we want for us.
Yeah.
The reason we struggle with that is because we live in a society where we shouldn't think about ourselves because that makes us selfish and narcissistic. I am here to tell everybody self care is not narcissistic. It is
Say it
just
louder for the
not.
people in the back.
Oh my God, it is not. Take care of yourself first
Mhm.
because you cannot fill someone else's bucket with love if your love bucket is empty because you haven't been given any to yourself. And the cool thing is that positivity, love, kindness, compassion, there is limitless amounts of this on the entire planet. We will never run out. You will never run out of oh, sorry, I gave away all the love today. I don't have any more left for you. Like that does not that's ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Start with you or me. I start with me, you start with you. Everyone start with yourselves because that's how it begins. That's how this all begins. If we don't have it there, it will not happen elsewhere. I can promise you. If you
Mhm.
do not care about yourself, if you do not love yourself, you will never be able to share love with other people in a way that's truly effective and powerful, um, and genuine, authentic, and compassionate. It just won't happen.
Yeah.
And here and there glimpses, but it's not going to be sustainable.
Mhm. For yourself
Won't
or for them. Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ah, we love you guys for listening. We're so glad you
Thank
joined us
you.
this week. We'll be back next week. We'll definitely dive more into art. If you're interested in hearing about Megan's art that she does, art therapy,
Not
it is
drawing, guys.
not.
Not drawing.
If you want to see some of Megan's
No.
artwork, no, it's what she was mentioning earlier in the podcast. It's on our website, and we're gonna do another episode about that because, like she said, we could talk about it for a long time. There's some really juicy stuff in there.
And if you guys
Um,
want to come on and talk with us,
mhm.
tell us. Because we
Yeah.
want to have people come on. And now that we have video, it's way more fun because now we can see everybody.
Yeah. So if any of this resonates with you, if you feel like you're an empath, if you feel like you took something from our podcast and used it and it worked for you, or if you just want to come on and make corny jokes with us, then we welcome it all. So feel free to reach
Love
out.
it.
We're here every week releasing new episodes. If there's something you want us to talk about, also feel free to reach out. And we really appreciate you so much for listening in.
Thank you.
Have a great week, everyone.